Jake Winters rolled into his driveway well past midnight, his muscles aching from 12 hours of travel. The long work trip had drained every last drop of patience from him, and all he wanted was a hot shower, a warm bed, and maybe a few minutes of peace before sleep swallowed him whole. But as the beams from his headlights swept over the front of his home, a jarring sight halted him in place. The garage door was closed, which was expected. What wasn't expected was a gleam of polished chrome rims visible through the thin slats of the garage's window, rims that didn't belong to his 10-year-old pickup. His brows pulled together in a frown as he killed the engine and stepped out, gravel crunching under his boots. He approached the garage window, peered inside, and felt his pulse skip. There, parked smugly inside his garage, was a white BMW X7, a luxury SUV he had seen every single day, just not on his own property. His jaw clenched. He knew that car. Everyone on the street did. It was practically a monument to passive aggression and overcompensation, owned by the one and only Karen Delacroix, his next-door neighbor and the undisputed queen of entitlement. Jake stared in disbelief. His garage. Her car. No call, no message, no knock. Just blatant trespassing. He walked to the keypad by the garage entrance and punched in his code. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. His heart rate quickened as realization settled in. The system had been manually disabled, which meant someone had physically accessed the controls inside. Someone had broken into his home. His fist curled against the side of the garage, knuckles whitening. Not out of fear, but out of fury. Sleep could wait. This had to be addressed now. Jake stormed across the lawn, stepping over the hedge that divided his property from the Delacroix, and pounded on their oversized mahogany front door. The sound echoed through the porch like thunder. He waited, breathing hard. After several seconds, the door creaked open just enough for a wedge of warm light to spill out, revealing Karen's perfectly highlighted head of blonde curls and an expression that screamed faux confusion. "Oh, Jake," she said, voice coated in a condescending sweetness. "You're back." That was fast. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Why is your car in my garage?" Karen blinked slowly, then smiled, a carefully crafted mix of innocence and smugness. "Oh, that. Yeah, my driveway was full of the kids and guests, and you weren't using your garage, so I figured no harm done, right?" Jake took a step forward, his tone razor-sharp. "You figured you'd break into my garage and park there without asking?" Karen let out a light, almost playful laugh. "Break in? Don't be dramatic. I saw the remote on your porch last week when I dropped off that neighborhood watch flyer. I just borrowed it. I knew you'd understand." The gall, the sheer audacity of it stunned him into a brief silence. "You need to move it. Now," he said, fighting to keep his voice level. Karen sighed, glancing over her shoulder into the lively glow of her house, where voices and music mingled. "Jake, I can't right now. We've got the birthday party still going and my hands are full. Just chill, okay? I'll get to it later. Promise." Then, before he could say another word, she closed the door in his face. For a long moment, Jake stood motionless, absorbing the insult like a punch to the gut. Not only had she trespassed, she had brushed off his anger like it was inconvenient background noise. He wasn't even a neighbor to her, just a doormat she occasionally stepped on. He walked back to his house, shoulders tense. He needed to calm down, think this through. The police, maybe? Surely this counted as unlawful entry. He grabbed his phone and made the call. "Non-emergency dispatch, what's your concern?" He explained the situation in detail. Someone had entered his property, parked their vehicle in his garage, and was refusing to move it. He even emphasized that it was locked and inaccessible to him now. The dispatcher paused. "So, to clarify, the car is on your property in your garage, but there's no visible damage or signs of forced entry?" No visible damage, but she admitted to taking a remote and using it without permission. Unfortunately, unless there's evidence of a crime like breaking and entering or theft, it's considered a civil matter. We can't remove the vehicle unless there's a court order or clear signs of criminal activity. Jake stared at the wall in disbelief. "So she can just steal my garage and I'm supposed to live with that?" "I understand your frustration, sir. You can speak with a civil attorney or try towing services." He hung up and immediately called 3 local tow companies. The first said they couldn't help without police clearance. The second arrived but took one look and shook his head. Can't get the rig in. The driver said, spitting a sunflower seed out the window. She parked diagonal. No space for the arm to maneuver. You have to move her car first to tow it. That was the problem. He couldn't move it. It wasn't his to move. It was locked tight, the fob undoubtedly back in Karen's smug little hands. Desperate, Jake decided to try one more thing. He rang the Delacroix doorbell again, and this time Karen's husband, Dave, answered. Dave was a broad-shouldered man with a fading tan and a perpetually blank expression. A beer rested lazily in his hand. He leaned against the doorframe like Jake's presence was a tedious interruption. "Look, man," Jake said, "I'm trying to be reasonable. Your wife parked in my garage without permission. I need the car out. Tonight." Dave shrugged. "It's just a garage. No harm, no foul. She'll move it tomorrow. Chill out, brother. Tomorrow isn't good enough. It's my house, my space. I didn't give her access." Dave's expression didn't change. All right, I'll tell her. But we're in the middle of something, all right." He closed the door before Jake could respond. Jake walked home in a stunned, bitter silence. He felt small, trapped in his own house. He imagined walking into his garage every morning, the stench of her perfume lingering from the car's vents, the imposition of her entitlement infecting his space like a virus. It wasn't about the car anymore. It was about control. She had taken something that belonged to him and the world. The cops, the neighbors, even the legal system shrugged it off. Inside his living room, he sat in the dark, fingers laced together, staring at the blank television screen. He didn't even feel tired anymore. What burned more than her intrusion was her dismissal, as if he was the unreasonable one, as if his right to privacy and property was just an inconvenience to her momentary need. Jake wasn't stupid. He knew that storming into her house and screaming wouldn't change anything. The law had already failed him. Civility had failed him. She knew how to walk the line between audacity and illegality. That was her power, boldness wrapped in fake innocence. But what if she didn't get to write the script this time? What if, for once, someone taught Karen what consequences felt like? A smile slowly crept across Jake's face, something cold and calculated blooming in his chest. It wasn't anger anymore. It was strategy. If she wanted to play games, he'd give her a game. Only this time, he was going to write the rules. And the next move was already forming in his mind. Jake barely slept that night. His body rested, but his mind moved with precise, furious rhythm, assembling possibilities like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Karen smirk, heard the shrill flippancy in her voice, felt the cold indifference when she closed the door in his face. She had made a choice, a loud, obnoxious, entitled choice. Now it was his turn to make one of his own. By morning, the rage had settled into something colder, clean, methodical. Jake wasn't impulsive by nature. He didn't shout, didn't throw things, didn't cause scenes. What he did was plan. And this wouldn't be some petty retaliation. It would be surgical, elegant, a quiet lesson in respect written in steel and concrete in silence. He started by reinforcing the garage. Early in the day, while Karen was undoubtedly preoccupied with cleaning up after whatever birthday chaos she'd hosted, he stopped by the hardware store. He purchased a high-security padlock, 2 steel hasps, a heavy-duty chain, and a smart remote garage lock with no external keypad, one he could control from his phone. Back home, he got to work. The first move was unplugging the garage opener entirely. He yanked the cord from the outlet and taped the wire with bright red warning flags. Then he disengaged the emergency release cord from inside, removing it completely. The garage could no longer be opened by force, unless you used a door like a battering ram. And even if someone tried to cut power and reset it, there was no opener to reactivate. He tested the app control system, locking and unlocking it remotely, smooth as silk. Karen's fancy SUV was now, effectively, entombed. He drilled the steel hasps into the outside frame of the garage door and ran the chain through them, securing it with a thick padlock. It was redundant, but the visual element mattered. He wanted Karen to see the boundary. to see how far her actions had pushed someone who'd once been her docile, quiet neighbor. Satisfied, Jake stepped back and surveyed his work. His garage was now a fortress, a prison for a vehicle that never should have crossed into his world in the first place. Then he went inside, packed his bags, and left town. He didn't leave a note, no voicemail, no warning. He simply got in his truck and drove north to a lakeside cabin he'd once visited years ago during a fall hiking trip. It was private, serene, and most importantly, out of cellular range for the first 2 hours of driving. When he finally got reception again, his phone began buzzing in furious bursts. He didn't even have to check the screen to know who it was. Karen. He ignored it. The first night at the cabin was bliss. Jake sat by the fire with a glass of bourbon, watching the wind ripple across the water and relishing the sheer peace of it. Every so often, he'd glance at his phone, open the messages, and scroll. The texts from Karen had begun like sharp little arrows. Jake, what the hell is going on? Open the garage. I need my car. You can't just leave with my property locked in. And then they softened, became syrupy. Okay, this isn't funny. I really need my car. Can we just talk? I didn't mean to offend you. I thought we were neighbors, friends. He scoffed. Friends? Since when had she ever treated him as anything more than a background character in the movie of her life? By day 3, her tone had shifted again. I called AAA. They said they can't get in. Do you know how expensive that car is? My husband is furious. This is harassment. Jake chuckled, sipping his drink as he posted a cryptic update to social media. It's amazing how peaceful life gets once you start locking the right doors. By day 4, things had clearly escalated. Karen had contacted a locksmith, but without a visible standard lock or way to safely access the internal mechanism, the job had been declined. Her text read like someone spiraling down a psychological cliff. I have an important doctor's appointment. You've made your point. Please, just let me get the car. I swear to God, I will call the police. Jake responded once, mid-hike, standing at the edge of a rocky overlook with birds wheeling to the sky above him. Go ahead. The silence that followed stretched for half a day. He figured she was trying to decide whether she had any legal leverage. But he had done his homework. It was his property. She had entered without permission. There were no damages, no theft, just reclaimed space. That night, Jake grilled steaks over an open flame and let her silence do. By day 5, she was back to raging. You're a lunatic. You think this is funny? It's abusive. You mess with the wrong family. And then, as if realizing her threats had lost their weight, she tried flattery again. Please, I'm begging you, just unlock the garage. I won't say another word. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. By day 6, Jake was scrolling through comments on his social media post. A few neighbors had caught wind of the situation. The ones who'd also endured Karen's antics, her unsolicited parenting advice, her passive-aggressive notes about lawn care, her loud complaints at HOA meetings, were starting to piece things together. One post in particular made Jake grin. About time someone stood up to her. She's a menace. By day 7, he knew it was time to go home. He arrived just after sunset. The sky was streaked in gold and lavender, and the Delacroix house stood dark and quiet. But as he pulled into his driveway, the porch light flicked on and Karen stepped outside like a coiled spring. Her hair was frizzy, makeup smudged, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. There you are, she hissed, crossing the lawn without waiting for him to get out of the truck. Do you have any idea what you've done? Jake said nothing as he opened the door, grabbed his duffel bag, and shut it with calm finality. My car's been in there for a week, she spat. My son missed his dentist appointment. My groceries went bad. You ruined my vehicle. He gave her a long, neutral look. You broke into my garage. You left me no choice. No, Jake said softly. You made a choice. I just responded. Karen's nostrils flared, but before she could snap again, Jake turned and walked toward the garage. He took out his phone, opened the smart lock app, and clicked unlock. The system clicked audibly. Then he pulled the padlock off the chain, looped it away, and tugged the garage door upward. The air that escaped made him recoil. A thick, putrid stench rolled out like a foul exhale from hell itself. Inside, Karen's SUV sat in the dark, its once pristine white paint now dust-covered, the windshield fog from the inside. On the dashboard sat a grocery bag. What was once fresh meat and milk, now a festering mess of mold and decay. Karen rushed past him with a gasp, hand covering her nose. She stared at the interior and let out a strangled cry. Oh my God, it smells. It smells like a corpse. Jake didn't flinch. Might want to get that detailed. She turned to him, eyes wild. You'll pay for this. Jake simply said, prove I did anything. It's your car, in my garage, after you broke in. Karen opened her mouth, closed it, and for once in her life, said nothing. Jake walked away. He didn't slam the door. He didn't gloat. He didn't post any more cryptic messages that night, because he didn't have to. The message had already been received, loud and rotting. The morning after Jake opened the garage, word spread like wildfire. Karen's meltdown had been loud, unhinged, and poorly timed, just as a school bus passed by and several early risers were out walking their dogs. She had screamed about her rotting groceries, her ruined upholstery, her violated rights, as if she were the victim of some unjust war crime instead of her own hubris. Jake said nothing. He didn't need to. The neighborhood had already seen enough to start drawing their own conclusions. By noon, someone had posted about the incident in the local neighborhood Facebook group. It was vague but unmistakable. When entitled neighbors learned boundaries a hard way, faced with tears of joy, accompanied by a blurry photo of Karen standing in Jake's driveway, yelling in what could only be described as a furious squawk, hands flailing wildly in the air. Jake, sipping his coffee on the porch, watched the scene unfold like a silent movie. Karen's SUV was still in the garage. She hadn't touched it since the door was opened. It was as if the stench alone had rendered the vehicle untouchable. It sat like a symbol of her downfall, a rotting monument of arrogance parked where it didn't belong. She hadn't spoken to him again, not directly, but the fury hadn't dissipated. It had simply changed shape. The next move came 2 days later, on a gray Thursday morning, when a patrol car pulled into Jake's driveway. The officer who stepped out was polite but professional, a middle-aged man with a clipboard and the weariness of someone who'd handled one too many neighborhood disputes. Mr. Winters? The officer asked. Mind if I come in for a moment? Jake welcomed him inside without hesitation. He knew what this was. Karen Delacroix filed a report, the officer said. Claims you maliciously damaged her property, unlawfully detained her vehicle, and caused emotional distress. She also says your wife scammed her out of a custom cake order, then refused a refund. Jake raised an eyebrow. She called 911 over a cake? More than once, the officer said, visibly unimpressed. She's made it a point of escalation. Jake chuckled, not out of arrogance, but disbelief. Let me guess. She didn't mention that she broke into my garage? No, she left that part out. Jake walked over to a drawer and retrieved a USB drive. You'll want this. It has video footage from my porch camera the night I confronted her. Audio 2. She admits to taking my remote and letting herself into the garage. The officer took the drive, flipping it in his hand. You mind if I ask, did you trap her car deliberately? I locked my property. I didn't touch her car. She claims you did damage by not letting her access it. Jake gave a small smile. If someone parks on your lawn and you close your gate, are you liable for their gas running out? The officer jotted something down. I see your point. Jake handed over his phone next. Every text, every voicemail, every escalation and attempt at manipulation carefully saved and time-stamped. By the end of their conversation, the officer looked more amused and concerned. I think we're good here. I'll file a counter-report. Frankly, her behavior may constitute misuse of emergency services, not to mention trespassing. After the officer left, Jake sent one final message to Karen. It was just 2 words. Keep digging. That night, he uploaded the confrontation footage to social media. Nothing fancy, no dramatic music, no editing. Just a simple clip titled, What Happens When Entitlement Parks Itself in the Wrong Garage? The internet did the rest. Within 12 hours, The video had over 100,000 views. By the weekend, it passed 1 million. Comments poured in by the thousands, some horrified, most delighted. Karen's smugness was on full display in the first half, dismissing Jake's frustration with a grin and a flippant, "You weren't using it anyway." The second half was his calm return, the garage creaking open, and her screams of horror at the stench of her own negligence. She became an overnight meme. Garage justice. The mold mobile. Karen gets locked in emotionally. Jake didn't say much online. He didn't have to. The footage spoke for itself. Neighbors stopped by with thinly veiled curiosity. Some brought cookies. Others offered congratulations in the form of dry jokes. One old-timer named Mr. Holloway said with chuckle, "Took someone finally putting her in a box to make her understand where the lines are." Karen, meanwhile, vanished from sight. Her husband, Dave, made a solo appearance at a neighborhood barbecue the following week. He stood awkwardly near the cooler, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. When asked about Karen, he muttered something about her staying with her sister for a bit. Rumor had it, Dave wasn't too thrilled about being dragged into the social media spotlight. A few suggested they were separating. Jake didn't care either way. But Karen did try one last gambit. A letter arrived, hand-delivered, with legal stationery and all the pretense of seriousness. She was filing a lawsuit for property damage, defamation, and emotional trauma. Jake laughed when he read it. The irony was suffocating. She had broken into his home, refused to move her vehicle, threatened him, called the police with false claims, and he was the one facing a lawsuit? Jake's attorney didn't laugh. He just said, "Good, let her try." The courtroom wasn't grand, but the drama unfolding inside it certainly was. Karen arrived dressed like a daytime television guest. Heels too high, pearls too obvious, makeup one shade too heavy. She wore the mask of dignity, but it cracked every time Jake's lawyer spoke. Evidence was presented clearly and calmly. Video, messages, timestamps, even statement from neighbors who'd overheard her boasting about borrowing Jake's garage. Every time she opened her mouth, she dug herself a little deeper. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and no tolerance for melodrama, listened patiently, then turned to Jake. "Mr. Winters," she said, "to your knowledge, did you ever physically touch Mrs. Delacroix's vehicle?" "No, Your Honor. I only secure my property." "Did you damage it in any way?" "No, Your Honor." She turned to Karen. "You entered his garage without permission?" Karen hesitated. "I didn't think." "That's a yes or no?" "Yes." The judge tapped her pen on the bench. Case dismissed. "Mrs. Delacroix, I recommend you consider the difference between personal inconvenience and actual harm. Mr. Winters, you are awarded minor damages and legal fees. You may file a restraining order if you wish." Karen's face crumpled in silent horror. Jake didn't look at her as he gathered his things. Outside, in the brisk afternoon air, his wife waited with a soft smile. She'd stayed clear of most of the chaos. But today, she wanted to be there for the final nail in the coffin. "How'd it go?" she asked. Jake slid his arm around her waist. "Let's just say, next time someone asks for a cake and doesn't hear the word no, they might think twice." They walked to the car in silence, the weight of weeks finally lifting from his shoulders. Behind them, the courthouse doors closed on Karen Delacroix, still fuming, still confused, still wondering how her world had shifted so drastically. Jake didn't look back. He didn't need to. Some lessons speak for themselves. 2 weeks had passed since the courtroom fallout, and the neighborhood had settled into a quieter rhythm. Jake and his wife, Emily, returned to their usual routines. He resumed work without the constant cloud of stress, and she reopened her small home bakery, grateful to leave the Karen ordeal behind her. But peace, Jake had learned, was a fragile thing when someone like Karen Delacroix believed the world owed her a personal apology wrapped in ribbon. It had started innocently enough. A knock on their door, 3 weeks before the SUV fiasco. Karen, all smiles and flattery, had asked Emily if she could bake a custom cake for her son's birthday party. A triple-layer chocolate ganache design with fondant dinosaurs, detailed to the scale of a wedding cake. Emily, who ran her business from their kitchen and juggled it between part-time work and family obligations, had politely declined. Her father had just been hospitalized, and they were preparing to travel for a few days. She even recommended another local baker. Karen didn't take the suggestion well. Her smile tightened. Her eyes narrowed. She called Emily unreliable, then stormed off muttering something about ruined childhood memories and never trusting amateurs again. That was the last interaction before the invasion of the garage, which in hindsight, Jake realized hadn't been a coincidence at all. It was retaliation, the kind only a narcissist could rationalize. Jake hadn't given the cake incident much thought at the time, but now, after the lawsuit failed and her humiliation was complete, Karen's petty grudge reemerged in a new and legally dangerous form. The police arrived again on a breezy Saturday morning. A different officer this time, younger, sharp-eyed, more skeptical from the outset. Jake was on the porch trimming some basil when the cruiser pulled up. "Mr. Winters?" the officer called. Jake nodded. "Let me guess, Karen?" The officer's expression barely changed. "We received a report of alleged fraud and harassment. Your wife is named in a complaint regarding a cake order that was never fulfilled despite payment." Jake blinked. "Are you serious?" "She says a deposit was made, the product wasn't delivered, and your wife refused to refund it." Jake motioned toward the front door. "You're welcome to come in. I'll get her." Inside, Emily was at the kitchen counter, piping roses onto a two-tiered wedding cake. Her brow furrowed when she saw the officer, but her hands remained steady. "Apparently, you scammed someone out of a birthday cake," Jake said, the sarcasm barely contained. Emily looked genuinely baffled. "I didn't take any deposit. I never accepted the order. She got angry when I said no." Jake turned to the officer. "We got text records. She never confirmed payment. No invoice. No contract." Emily handed over her phone. The officer scrolled to the messages. Karen asking for a cake. Emily replying with a firm but polite rejection. No follow-up. No agreement. No banking details. No transaction. The officer sighed. "I figured, but procedure says I need to take a full statement from both of you." Jake and Emily complied. Afterward, the officer shook his head. "Honestly, I think she just wants to provoke something. You've got nothing to worry about. I'll file this as a false report. You going to charge her for wasting your time?" Jake asked, "Maybe not today, but the more she keeps crying wolf, the more likely it becomes." The incident might have ended there, another swing and a miss from a woman who couldn't accept defeat, but it didn't. Karen had always been persistent, and this time, she'd found the one angle she thought couldn't fail, weaponizing public sympathy. That night, Jake saw her Facebook post, a long, emotional monologue about being deeply hurt by a neighbor's betrayal, claiming her son cried himself to sleep on his birthday because the cake she'd paid for never arrived. She called Emily cruel, said she'd sabotaged a child's special day, and hinted that they were hiding behind lawyers and technicalities. The comment section divided instantly. Some people, mostly from outside the neighborhood, offered supportive messages. Others were less convinced. One neighbor, Amanda, posted a screenshot of viral garage video beneath the post, with a single caption, "Oh, this you." Within hours, the post became a battleground. Jake stayed out of it. He didn't need to fight. The internet did that for him. By the following afternoon, Karen's post had been deleted, along with half her profile. She'd made it private, but the screenshots were already circulating. Her lies had met the full force of digital accountability. Still, she had one last card to play. 3 days later, they received a formal notice. Karen had filed a restraining order against Emily, claiming she had harassed, defrauded, and threatened her, that she felt unsafe in her own home because of Emily's escalating behavior. Jake read the papers in stunned silence. "She's unhinged." Emily looked at him with a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. "She's trying to erase the court loss. If she can't win legally, she wants the world to think I'm the aggressor." This time, they responded with their own lawsuit, defamation, malicious prosecution, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They compiled everything: text messages, emails, court transcripts, video evidence, and even the 911 audio logs. The judge assigned to the case wasn't new to Karen. She raised her brows when she saw the name, clearly remembering the prior trial. At the hearing, Karen tried to cry, claimed she'd been bullied online, that Emily weaponized public opinion against her. She claimed the viral video had cost her sponsorships for a home decor blog and that her mental health had deteriorated. Emily didn't say much. She let the facts speak for her. When her attorney played the 911 audio, the courtroom fell uncomfortably silent. Karen's voice on the recording was not distressed. It was high-pitched, calculated, and peppered with smug confidence. She claimed theft, fraud, intentional child neglect, and threatened to make her life hell. When the judge looked up, her expression was flat and unsympathetic. "You filed a restraining order over a cake you were never charged for?" Karen swallowed hard. "I was emotionally devastated. You filed 2 false police reports, initiated a baseless lawsuit, and publicly defamed the defendant. Do you understand how much court time and public resources you wasted?" Karen's lower lip trembled, but she didn't respond. The judge ruled in Emily's favor. Damages were awarded, enough to sting. Karen was ordered to issue a formal apology, delete any remaining defamatory content, and refrain from contact under threat of further legal action. Outside the courthouse, reporters and bloggers had gathered, drawn by the viral attention from the garage incident. They called it the cake that lit the match. Jake and Emily didn't speak to the press. They walked to their car, hands clasped tightly. At home that evening, Emily made a small chocolate cake. No fondant, no dinosaurs, just smooth frosting and a single candle flickering in the center. Jake smirked, celebrating. She nodded, closure. He cut the cake in silence, the simple sweetness filling the room. No drama, no lawsuits, number 911 calls, just peace. And this time, they knew how to protect it.